You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Welcome back, everyone, and you know me, I'm stamping out reefer madness in the media everywhere I can find it, and last Friday I got another opportunity from the Los Angeles Times. Now, to be fair, this is a columnist named Nicole Brochu who writes for the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, so coming from Florida, I can understand why her reefer madness might be a more virulent strain, but let me get to some of this article here, and we'll get right into the reefer madness debunking. She begins by saying, "It's difficult to raise the topic of marijuana usage in America today without somehow touching off an intense debate over whether this relatively mild but still harmful drug should be decriminalized or even fully legalized. That's how much the pro-pot crowd has hijacked the national conversation over the nation's ongoing struggle with drug use." Hijacked. Yes, we've hijacked the national conversation. I always find that funny when hijacking the national conversation. She's got 225,000 circulation at the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel and 725,000 circulation in the LA Times. So here we have a reefer mad mainstream media columnist with almost 1 million readers complaining that we're dominating the conversation. Geez, it reminds me when the drug czar with a $421 million annual budget complains about the well-funded pro-legalization forces out there. Yeah. Hey, look, hijacked in this sense means told the public the truth. Isn't it remarkable how the national conversation leans toward legalization when people know cannabis doesn't lead to heroin, doesn't cause cancer, doesn't cause lung disease, doesn't make you stupid, doesn't get you addicted, and doesn't make your girlfriend leave you for an alien? Now, Nicole continues in her conversation here about an opinion piece of a drug treatment psychologist who noticed the spike in teen pot smoking and attributed it to the growing tolerance of marijuana use. Then she notes the University of Michigan study showing that teen exposure to anti-drug messages has nosedived over the past 7 years when teens also reported that those messages actually worked. Well, folks, that's stretching a bit. What the report found is, quote, between 2003 and today, the proportion of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders that agreed the commercials made them to a great extent less favorable toward drugs remained fairly stable. Since 2003, pretty stable on how those commercials worked. Now, that there are less of those commercials is because the Government Accountability Office in 2006 found, quote, between 1998 and 2004, Congress appropriated over $1.2 billion to the Drug Czar's Office for national anti-drug media campaigns, and that, quote, the campaign was not effective in reducing youth drug use either during the entire period of the campaign or during the period from 2002 to 2004 when the campaign was redirected and focused on marijuana use, end quote. $1.2 billion flushed down the toilet. So basically, kids today have the same reaction to ineffective anti-pot commercials that they had in 2003. Now, Nicole continues. Perhaps it's not at all irrelevant that after a decade's decline in pot smoking, the same study also found a spike in marijuana usage among teens last year, with more high school seniors lighting up joints than cigarettes. Yet, back in 2003, before the teens' exposure to anti-drug messages nosedived, 21.2% of seniors used cannabis monthly. This year, it's 21.4%. So in 2006, 3 years into the nosedive, 18.3% were using monthly. So how come no column about how less ads led to a plummet in use in that time? She continues, the numbers and the trend are not in dispute. What is up for debate, and a heated one at that, is what to do about it. Well, actually, there is quite a dispute about your trend regarding cannabis use. About 1 in 5 high school seniors has been using cannabis monthly, a trend that holds true back to 1995. It's never fluctuated from around 3 percentage points one way or the other. The high point, 23.7% in 1997, 18.3% is the low point in 2006, and today it's about 21.4%. The trend that is impressively on the decline is teen cigarette smoking. In 1995, 1 in 3 high school seniors smoked cigarettes monthly, a figure that got as high as 36.5% in 1997. Since then, about 1 in 5 seniors smoke cigarettes, 19.2%. Yes, more high school kids are lighting up joints than cigarettes, but that's not because more kids smoke pot. It's because much fewer kids smoke cigarettes. She continues. But to suggest that legalizing marijuana is somehow an answer to society's drug problems, that regulating its sale and distribution would actually lead to a reduction in usage, especially among youth, defies sober reasoning. Legalization proponents like to point out that the Netherlands, with its liberal drug policy, has a lower drug rate than America's, but they neglect to tell you that the country's marijuana usage among 18 to 20-year-olds nearly tripled after legalization, at a time when usage among adolescents in the United States decreased steadily, according to the medical journal Pediatrics. Wait a minute. You mean the increase in 18 to 20-year-old adults visiting an 18 and older legal coffee shop in the Netherlands is the argument you want to use among 16 to 17-year-old adolescent children in America will use it more? That adults will use it more when it's legal and they can go to an adult-only place? That's your argument for why kids would use it more. Okay. Especially when you think in America, it would probably be an 18 age. It would probably be a 21 age. That's the argument you want to stick with? Look, I find it funny that the Pediatrics article you cited, you neglected to include their findings that, quote, decriminalization of marijuana in a number of states from 1975 to 1980 apparently had no effect on high school students' beliefs and attitudes about marijuana or on their use of the drug during those years, end quote. And why don't you just tell us what the rate of cannabis use is among those Dutch adolescents in the so liberal tolerant Netherlands? Because the latest figures I found from the European Monitoring Center for Drugs and Drug Addiction says 28% of Dutch youth aged 15 to 16 have tried cannabis in their lifetime, 15% used it last month, and 49% say it's easy or fairly easy to get. Let's compare that to American 10th graders. 33% have used it in their lifetime. That's 5% more. 16.7% say they've used it this month. That's 1.7% more. And 69.4% of 10th graders say it's easy to get. In America, where you can be locked up and cannabis is completely illegal, 69.4% of kids age 14 to 15 in America say it's easy to get, whereas less than half of Dutch kids that age say it's easy to get when they have legal coffee shops. And extrapolate that to the 12th graders, the 16 and 17-year-olds in America, 43.8% have used cannabis, 21.4% are using it this month, and 82.1% say it's easy or fairly easy to get. 82%, easy or fairly easy to get. Netherlands, 49%. Let's go on. She says, putting pot up for sale in convenience stores next to cigarettes and beer will only make it more accessible and more acceptable, not to mention more affordable, creating more consumers, not less. Youth will be the most vulnerable. Alaska's experiment with legalization is any example. The state's youth started smoking at twice the rate of those nationally, convincing Alaska to recriminalize marijuana in 1990, according to the DEA. Yeah, see, for the reefer mad prohibitionists like Nicole Brochu, it's either lock people up for smoking pot or pot up for sale in the convenience stores next to cigarettes and beer. They can accept that legal drugs is a pretty broad concept, you know, everything between over-the-counter aspirin to completely controlled and prescription-only morphine. They can accept that, but when it comes to cannabis, it's either completely illegal or buds next to bud and jazz cigarettes next to the regular ones at the 7-Eleven, right? That's the only choices there are. Now, they criticize the Netherlands model of adults-only coffee houses without noticing they're not exactly convenience stores. And in fact, in a Dutch coffee house, you can't even see the menu for the cannabis without pushing a button. They have it so strictly controlled on the advertising that it cannot be passively advertised. You must push a button to be advertised cannabis in the Netherlands. They can't even make a connection that, cannabis might be like liquor. In 19 states in America, we have state-run or state-controlled liquor stores, yet they can't seem to apply that model. It's got to be 7-Elevens. Oh, and as far as that Alaska legalization thing goes, it wasn't legalization. Their Supreme Court decided in 1975 that they had the right to smoke marijuana in their house thanks to their constitutional privacy protections. So let's call it a very limited decriminalization. You can smoke pot at home. Now, I've debunked that at length on the Stash. Check out stash.normal.org, put Alaska in the search box. And as I wrote back then, if Alaskan teen marijuana use went up from 1975 to 1979, I wouldn't be surprised, since the teen use of marijuana skyrocketed nationwide from 27% to 36.5% using marijuana monthly in that 4-year period. That's an increase of over 34%. So Alaskan teen use would have had to go up more than that to have any consideration that decriminalization had anything to do with it, and it didn't. Now, Alaskans did vote for a recriminalization measure in 1990, 53% to 47%, but that was when nationwide support for legalization was down to 16%. However, the courts invalidated that in 2003, and since then, they've been back to very limited decriminalization. The teen use rates in Alaska continued to fall after that in 2003, even though they got their right back to smoke weed at home. So how come no writing about how the rates went down after marijuana was made legal again in Alaska? Because it doesn't fit your reefer madness, that's why. There's more debunking of that, complete with charts and hyperlinks, and we'll continue a little bit more of it in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Follow all of us on Twitter and the new Normal Show live feed, normal_show_live for updates. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.